My sister-in-law, Yumi, wanting to cultivate an image of a beautiful, clueless mother, prepared formula for her 1-month-old nephew, Ethan, using cold water. The result was a full day of vomiting and diarrhea for the baby. Yet, all she did was cover her mouth and sigh. Yumi is so silly, she didn't know babies can't drink cold water. When Ethan was just 2 months old, Yumi insisted on feeding him an entire egg yolk, claiming it would boost his immunity. This nearly caused him to choke to death. I couldn't bear it any longer, so I took Ethan home to care for him properly. Caring for Ethan meant I toiled tirelessly all day. I was barely in my 30s, yet I was withered and gaunt, a shadow of my former self. Meanwhile, Yumi continued to live her refined life, constantly flattering herself as a beautiful, wonderful, clueless mother. Later, when Ethan was accepted into a prestigious 985 university, Yumi began to blame me, accusing me of stealing her son away, claiming he never felt parental warmth from a young age. Ethan believed her, and he burned me alive in my own home. Yumi, leveraging her image as a beautiful, clueless mother with a son at a 985 university, earned a fortune online. Their entire family lived happily ever after. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back on the very day I took Ethan away. Yumi didn't mean it. Yumi just thought feeding the baby egg yolk would boost his immunity and make him strong. My sister-in-law, Yumi Tran's, whining voice in my ear sent shivers down my spine. I looked around and realized I was standing in the hospital corridor. Before me were my brother and my sister-in-law. Seeing my brother's sorrowful face and Yumi Tran sobbing in his arms, I was stunned. This scene was far too familiar. Wasn't this exactly what happened in my previous life? I had been reincarnated. My brother sighed, gently stroked Yumi Tran's hair, and comforted her. I know Yumi didn't mean it. You did everything for our child. Don't blame yourself anymore, the baby is fine now. Ever since she became pregnant with Ethan, Yumi Tran seemed to go mad, constantly claiming to be a clueless mother. She'd say pregnancy made her dumb for 3 years, always asking my brother if he loved her or their son more. If his answer wasn't to her liking, it was almost guaranteed that something bad would happen to Ethan due to her carelessness. Every time my mother tried to question Yumi Tran about how she treated her grandson, she always had an excuse. Yumi didn't mean it. She's just too silly to know how to care for a baby. It wasn't until Ethan was 2 months old and Yumi Tran almost suffocated him by force-feeding him an entire egg yolk that my mother discovered it and rushed the baby to the hospital for treatment. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I took Ethan in to raise him myself. Who would have thought that after 18 years of tirelessly being a super nanny, until Ethan was accepted into a 985 university, Yumi would lay all the blame on me? If you hadn't taken Ethan away, my family wouldn't have been shattered. My son didn't have his parents' care from a young age. But when he turned 5, I had wanted to return him to Yumi Tran. She was the one who claimed she was too clueless to raise a child, forcing me to continue caring for him. I treated Ethan as my own son, sacrificing everything to raise him, only to become a sacrifice for their family's happiness. In the end, I was burned alive by the ungrateful grandson I had raised. As the flames consumed me, I only heard my nephew's demonic words. My mother was too naive, so you tricked her. If it weren't for you, our family would have reunited long ago. Go die, you despicable woman. Suddenly, hearing a familiar voice, I awoke from my memories. The baby isn't even 2 months old, and his teeth haven't come in yet. How can he eat an entire egg yolk? He can't swallow it, and you kept trying to force-feed him. Aren't you trying to kill him? My mother stepped out of the patient's room, glaring furiously at Yumi Tran. Seeing my mother's familiar face again, tears streamed uncontrollably down my cheeks. In my previous life, I was burned alive, and my brother and Yumi Tran fabricated an accident, allowing the culprit, Ethan Truong, to remain free. My mother didn't believe my death was an accident. She cried until her eyes ran dry, her hair turning white overnight. When she angrily confronted my brother, he pushed her down the stairs, eventually leaving her paralyzed and to die of starvation in bed. Stella Truong, you really are a fool. Why did you take the baby to raise? Now look. The child is sick and suffering, and you're working yourself to death with no thanks. It's all because you're too soft-hearted and your sister-in-law took advantage of you. My mother looked at me with deep sorrow, scolding me but still full of love. I tried to control myself, wanting to rush forward and hug my mother. Having been reborn, this time I would definitely make them pay. I really didn't mean it. Yumi just wanted to boost the baby's immunity. I already said I don't know how to care for a child. Yumi Tran lowered her head, feigning distress, and nestled into my brother's arms. The act melted his heart. He shielded her while angrily shouting at my mother. Yumi said she didn't mean it. What more do you want, Mom? She doesn't know how to care for a child, so why are you bullying her? My mother's eyes reddened from his shouting. Angrily, I stepped forward to stand by my mother. Yumi Tran's eyes welled up with tears. Don't scold Mom anymore, she didn't mean it either. It's all because Yumi is too silly to know how to care for a baby. If someone could help, that would be wonderful. After saying this, she cast a meaningful glance at me before nestling back into my brother's arms. In my previous life, that very hint softened my heart. Out of pity for Ethan and not wanting to cause discord between my mother and sister-in-law, I decided to raise him. Now, hearing these loaded words again, I felt only sarcasm. It was clear that in my previous life, she deliberately wanted me to raise her child. When she saw Ethan had a promising future, she wanted to reap the rewards. If she had been upfront from the beginning, I would certainly have let Ethan stay with her. But she lied so he wouldn't hate her, then had me killed. This time, I won't be a fool. Let's see how her son will be harmed by his own beautiful, clueless mother. Seeing no reaction from me, Yumi Tran's eyes flashed with cunning, then she feigned pitifulness again. Yumi is a silly mother. She keeps learning but still doesn't know how to care for her child. Later, if anything happens to the baby, please don't blame Yumi, okay? Wasn't this a threat? If you can't raise a child, why have one? If you give birth and can't raise it, don't blame others. What kind of ability is that, really? I glanced at my mother from the corner of my eye. She seemed reluctant. She hesitated for a long time, opening her mouth to say something. I subtly tugged at her sleeve, shaking my head so slightly it was almost imperceptible. In my previous life, after Yumi Tran gave birth, she would whine about being a clueless mother who didn't know how to care for a child, refusing even to breastfeed. My mother, understanding that child-rearing wasn't solely the mother's responsibility, and knowing my brother was too busy to help, moved into his house to care for Ethan in Yumi Tran's place. My mother even spent her own money to buy goat milk to boost Ethan Triwang's immunity. Yet Yumi Tran was still dissatisfied, bickering with my mother every 3 days, having major arguments every 5, and then fabricating excuses that my mother was unclean and might make the baby sick, preventing her from caring for Ethan anymore. It turned out it was all a scheme to make me dedicate my time and resources to raise her son successfully so she could reclaim him later. Now, she wanted to play the same trick on me again, but this time, her calculations wouldn't succeed. I continued Yumi Tran's words. Sister-in-law, you do everything for your child. How can we blame you? Caring for a baby is truly hard work, but it's true that sometimes Mom isn't thorough enough with hygiene. If Ethan accidentally got sick, that wouldn't be good. There's nothing for it but for you, sister-in-law, to work a little harder. Brother, after work, you should also help sister-in-law care for Ethan a bit. Don't let her suffer alone anymore. I turned to my brother, playfully extending my fist as always. My brother, though he cared for Yumi Tran, loved himself more. Otherwise, he would have shared childcare duties with her long ago. He wouldn't have let his child face one issue after another. Having lived through the previous life, I saw through everything. This time, I wouldn't be foolishly exploited again. Yumi Tran seemed certain I would take on the responsibility of caring for Ethan, but she didn't expect me to say that. The look in her eyes betrayed her suspicion. My brother, seeing her expression sour, sternly rebuked me. As an aunt, you should help relieve your sister-in-law's burden. If you're free, you should also come help her care for the baby. Hearing that, Yumi Tran's expression softened slightly, but she still pouted coquettishly. Even though Yumi is a little silly, she can still care for our child. Husband, don't worry about Yumi. As her voice started to change, I struggled to suppress a wave of nausea. Clearly, she wanted me to become a surrogate mother, caring for the child for free, while pretending to wait for me to volunteer so she could later shift all the blame onto me. But this time, I wouldn't be a fool. Other caregivers get paid, but I invested both my money and energy, only to meet a tragic end. I feigned awkwardness and spoke up. Sister-in-law, you're his birth mother and can't manage, so how can I, an unmarried woman with no children, manage? Besides, I've just officially started my job and I'm very busy. Once I'm free, I'll thoroughly research how to care for a baby, and then I'll certainly help you with Ethan. I articulated each word clearly, leaving both my brother and Yumi trans speechless out of pride. After all, he was her grandson, and my mother still couldn't bear it, so she spoke up. How about I care for Ethan so Yumi can rest a bit? I don't need you to care for him. You're illiterate, how can you care for Ethan? Hearing that, I couldn't help but inwardly sneer. So, the reason she didn't want my mother to care for Ethan before was because she looked down on her illiteracy, and she wanted to use me because I was educated. What a master manipulator. Husband, even though Yumi is a little silly, Yumi will try her best to care for our baby. Yumi trans shot an annoyed glance at my mother, then pouted and cuddled with my brother. Neither of them cared about my mother's humiliation. Right there in the hospital corridor, they embraced and kissed passionately, making me want to vomit. This crazy couple truly was inseparable. After Ethan Truong was discharged from the hospital, I immediately brought my mother to live with me. Since Yumi Tran disliked her so much, there was no need for her to suffer there. But less than a week later, Ethan had another incident while being cared for by Yumi Tran. Upon receiving the call, my mother rushed me to the hospital. My mother was genuinely worried about Ethan, but I, who had seen through the boy's true nature, felt no familial affection left. I went only to see what trick Yumi Tran was up to this time. Seeing my brother anxiously pacing in front of the pediatric emergency room, and Yumi Tran feigning distress and pouting, I inquired and learned that their water heater was broken, and my brother hadn't had time to fix it. Yumi Tran, too lazy to boil hot water for Ethan, had given him a cold bath. A 2-month-old baby, with such a fragile body, couldn't possibly withstand such a shock. Just one cold bath led to a high fever all night. When she saw me arrive, Yumi Tran's eyes lit up. She was clearly plotting something. Sure enough, she immediately started to cry and complain. Our water heater is broken. It's so hot in May and June, even Yumi, who hates the cold, dared to take a cold bath. I didn't realize our baby's immunity was so weak. Just one bath and he got such a high fever. I really didn't mean it. I didn't know babies shouldn't have cold baths. I told you I'm silly. I scrutinized Yumi Tran's expression. Despite her remorseful words, there wasn't a hint of worry for the baby in her eyes. A fragile newborn could die from a high fever. Yet, she remained utterly indifferent what nerve. But at this point, I no longer cared about Ethan's life or death. If he died, it would be karma for his actions in the previous life. I pretended to be understanding, gently patting Yumi Tran's hand. Sister, don't blame yourself. No one is born knowing how to be a mother. You have to learn gradually. I'm sure you'll be a good mother to your child eventually. I smiled lightly, patting her shoulder as if to comfort her, but not hearing what she wanted, Yumi Tran's expression didn't soften at all. Her gaze at me was full of calculation, and finally she spoke. Yumi has thought about it. How about Stella cares for Ethan for a while? After all, Stella is well educated, so she surely won't be as clumsy as Yumi. My brother frowned upon hearing this, then hesitated and spoke. How can that be? How can I let my sister raise my child for me? It would be so shameful if word got out. Although my brother defended Yumi Tran, deep down he was still a selfish man. He immediately refused when his own interests were at stake. Not getting what she wanted, Yumi Tran's face darkened. Yumi also can't bear to be apart from her child, but Yumi is too silly and keeps accidentally hurting him. Saying this made my brother hesitate again. Seeing the situation, I immediately spoke up. Sister-in-law, I understand your feelings, but my work is so busy that I certainly won't be able to care for Ethan better than you. If I accidentally made him sick, that wouldn't be good either. Yumi Tran was still sitting there, dreaming of me becoming a big fool, raising her child for free, wanting to live carefree for over a decade, and finally reaping the rewards. Dream on. Yumi Tran's expression was a little unsightly. She was about to open her mouth to say something. My mother suddenly roared, "Enough! Your child is still in the sick room, and you two are already pushing blame back and forth like this. Is that how parents behave?" My mother was usually a gentle person. This was the first time I had ever seen her so angry. She truly loved this grandson. But remembering my previous life, after I died, Ethan, the very child she adored, just to curry favor with Yumi Tran, watched her starve to death. I felt immense sorrow. In this life, I not only wanted to live well with my mother, but also to make those who deserved punishment pay. After Ethan left the ICU, my mother, fearing Yumi Tran would pull another stunt, volunteered to stay and care for him. When Ethan was discharged, Yumi Tran probed, "Stella, are you really that busy with work? So busy you can't even care for a child? Yumi is so silly, she really doesn't know how to care for a baby." I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. When she was plotting against me, she didn't look silly at all. One or two times, she could claim it was a mistake, but this was already the third time. She was clearly pouring all her effort into making me willingly care for her child. But this time, I would disappoint her. I feigned a difficult expression, sighing, "Sister-in-law, I truly care about you, but I've just been officially hired. My current workload is immense. Once I finish my work, I'll definitely come help you with Ethan." I told her I was busy, but in truth, I would never again care for an ungrateful ingrate like Ethan. Yumi Tran's expression was incredibly unpleasant, but she forced a smile. "Stella, you're so kind. Remember, when you're free, you must help Yumi." Not wanting to talk to her anymore, I used the excuse of needing to handle documents. I pulled my mother away, noticing Yumi Tran's annoyed gaze. I knew she wouldn't give up easily. Suddenly, I thought of something. Before leaving, I turned back and reminded her, "Oh, that's right, sister-in-law, remember not to give Ethan salt. People online say it's not good for children to eat salt too early." Hearing this, Yumi Tran's eyes lit up as if she'd found a lifeline, but then she realized something was amiss, immediately lowered her voice, forced a smile, and nodded, "Don't worry, I'll pay attention." Only then did I feel reassured enough to leave. Back home, I even sent Yumi Tran a scientific video about the dangers of giving salt to children under 1 year old, emphasizing again that Ethan must not eat salt. Since I refused to care for Ethan this time, she would undoubtedly try to make the boy sick to prove she couldn't care for a child. Rather than letting her come up with a plan herself, I might as well suggest a shortcut for her. Not long after, Yumi Tran immediately replied to the message, promising she would pay attention and not give her child salt. Ethan Triwang, that ungrateful grandson whom I treated as my own son and my mother pampered even more, yet because of one remark from Yumi Tran, he caused both our deaths. In this life, I wanted to see how the mother he revered would care for him. A few weeks later, I received news about Ethan again. My brother called, his voice urgent. "Ethan has a high fever again. The doctor said it's a respiratory infection causing a cold. This time it's very serious. He's on an IV in the hospital. The doctor also found he has high blood pressure and wants to do a full body check. Come quickly." I went to the hospital with the mindset of watching a drama unfold. But this time, I didn't tell my mother. After all, she hadn't experienced the previous life and still loved her grandson very much. It was best not to let her worry. As soon as I reached the door of the patient's room, I heard my brother yelling. The doctor said eating too much salt reduces saliva, allowing bacteria and viruses to invade the respiratory tract and cause infection. And high blood pressure, too. My child is only a few months old, and this is the 4th or 5th time he's been hospitalized. Is the money I earn just leaves falling on the street? Yumi Tran was about to use her old trick of feigning tears and self-pity. Yumi didn't mean to give the baby salt. She was just afraid the egg porridge would be too bland, so she added a little salt. She truly didn't know children shouldn't eat salt. Yumi is just too silly. In the past, my brother would have rushed to comfort her. But this time, whether out of regret for the money or genuine concern for his son, he didn't coddle her at all. Instead, he directly cursed at her. "Damn it, I've never seen anyone as stupid as you. You can't do anything but ruin things. If anything happens to my son and he becomes disabled, I will never forgive you." A doctor in a white coat entered the room. "The baby's fever has gone down, but it might return tonight. Remember to cover him well. We will check his temperature regularly. Also, the baby might have more than just high blood pressure. We need to wait for the results to know more." After saying this, the doctor gave a few more instructions and left. The room suddenly became eerily quiet. Indeed, evil begets evil. I tried to suppress my laughter, pushed the door open, and walked in. "Oh my goodness, what happened? Ethan has a fever again and high blood pressure too? Sister-in-law, you didn't secretly give Ethan salt, did you? I've warned you so many times not to give him salt, didn't you listen?" My barrage of questions left Yumi Tran flustered, stunned for a few seconds before she reacted, frantically waving her hands. "Yumi didn't give him salt directly. It was just in the egg porridge." Smack. Before she could finish, a slap from my brother landed squarely on her face. Yumi Tran was stunned. She had expected my brother to defend her as always, but instead she was slapped right in front of others. You still claim you don't know children shouldn't eat salt. Are you pretending to be stupid? Are you trying to kill my child? Yumi Tran, her face flushed, frantically screamed. No, I didn't intend to kill my child. I just wanted the boy to get a little severely ill so your sister would willingly spend money and care for our child for us. Yumi Tran was so eager to explain to my brother that she blurted out her entire plan without thinking. Hearing that, I couldn't help but inwardly sneer. It was exactly as I had predicted. I covered my mouth, feigning heartbreak, and cried out to Yumi Tran, "Sister-in-law, how could you treat me like this? I wholeheartedly dedicated myself to my nephew, and yet you plotted against me like this." After saying that, I deliberately shed 2 tears and ran straight out of the patient's room. I had only run a few steps when I heard my brother angrily yell, "What did you do to make my sister leave like that? I was still planning to use her insurance card to pay our child's hospital bills." Indeed, birds of a feather flocked together. This couple was truly a match made in hell. They were more conniving than anyone. I pulled out my phone and pressed stop on the recording, so it was all just a scheme to trick me. Dream on. Back home, I knew Yumi Tran would undoubtedly pull more tricks, so I decided to tell my mother everything that happened in my previous life. How my brother and his wife had killed me and her. Hearing me recount how I had tirelessly raised Ethan until he was 18, only to be falsely accused by Yumi Tran and then murdered by the very grandson I had raised, my mother couldn't hold back her tears. Although she knew that ever since her marriage, Yumi Tran had always disliked her and deliberately caused trouble, my brother always covered for his wife, while I was always obedient and filial. My mother, of course, believed me more. She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Don't be afraid, Mom will protect you well." However, that very evening, just one phone call from Yumi Tran reawakened my mother's soft-heartedness. "Mom, Ethan's test results are out. The doctor said his heart is damaged. Please come see your grandson." Yumi Tran's voice choked with sobs over the phone. In the background, I could clearly hear my brother yelling, "These doctors only know how to cheat money. How can a child so young have heart disease?" My brother stopped a doctor in a white coat and angrily questioned him. Yumi Tran also rushed over, shouting, "He only ate a little salt, how could it affect his heart?" I checked online, at most it only causes a fever. The doctor gently pushed up his glasses and calmly explained, "A newborn's internal organs are not fully developed. Long-term consumption of high salt can easily damage the heart. If he had been brought in any later, his kidneys might also have been affected. A small amount of salt isn't an issue, but in this case, he consumed too much salt, and his heart function is severely damaged. Immediate surgery is required, otherwise, his life will be in danger." My brother was so enraged that he couldn't help but slap Yumi Tran again. The phone call was abruptly cut off. My mother anxiously looked at the phone's black screen, then turned to me. I rubbed my forehead and sighed. After all, my mother hadn't experienced the previous life and still considered Ethan an innocent child. Sometimes people have to hit rock bottom to wake up. I forced a smile. "Mom, if you're worried, just go to the hospital and see." Out of concern for my mother, I went with her. As soon as we arrived at the patient's room, Yumi Tran immediately rushed towards us as if seeing a lifeline. "Mom, your grandson is in great danger. You must save him." My brother saw me appear and pulled Yumi Tran's hand away from my mother, gesturing for her to look at me. Yumi Tran looked at me, her eyes glinting with calculation. "Stella, you're Ethan's paternal aunt. The hospital fees now depend solely on you." I glared at her thinking, does she still think I'm a fool? Ethan isn't my child, why should I pay? I want to help, but I really don't have any money. All my money is invested in a fund, now I only have a few hundred left. I held up my hands, feigning helplessness. Yumi Tran's face darkened upon hearing this, then her eyes darted around, thinking of something. "The surgery and treatment will cost $150,000. Your 50-square-meter apartment would probably fetch up to $300,000. Sell your house and save our grandson already." I was amused by her audacity. "Ethan's illness wasn't caused by me. I warned you countless times not to give him salt. You deliberately plotted to harm your own child. Why should I sell my house? I bought this house with money from writing novels during university. Why should I use it to pay for your child's treatment? Your parents bought your house for you. Why don't you sell that? If I sell it, where will I live?" My brother hadn't expected me to refuse so firmly. His veins bulged on his forehead as he raised his hand, intending to slap me. I raised my hand to block, but unexpectedly my mother delivered a powerful kick directly to my brother's stomach, sending him sprawling to the ground. I watched him lie dazed on the floor, then looked at my mother, filled with admiration. It seemed her years of practicing square dancing hadn't been in vain. My mother was truly like aged ginger, spicier with age. You can't even care for your own child, and now you're demanding your sister bear the burden instead. If you have a child, you must take responsibility. My mother's booming voice startled both my brother and Yumi Tran. It was the first time I had ever seen my mother so formidable. Yumi Tran helped my brother up, then screamed with a distorted face, "It's all your fault. If you hadn't said children shouldn't eat salt, I wouldn't have given it to him. It's your fault, you have to take responsibility." With that, she lunged at me, intending to scratch my face. I dodged to the side and she fell, smashing her face onto the floor. 2 of her front teeth broke off and blood gushed everywhere. Yumi Tran was in so much pain, she clutched her mouth and wailed. My brother frantically rushed over to check on her. I seized the opportunity to pull my mother out of the room. Given Yumi Tran's propensity for making a scene, if we had stayed, she would certainly have demanded that we take care of her too. On the way home, my mother gently touched my face, silent tears falling. "Stella, I thought I would never see you again in this life. You've suffered so much. This old mother can die, but you're still so young. All of this they brought upon themselves. I will protect you to the very end." Hearing this, my tears also flowed ceaselessly. I hugged my mother tightly, refusing to let go. The next morning, I was woken by Yumi Tran's phone call. "Stella Truong, you immediately figure out how to give me 150,000. If anything happens to my child, I'll make your life a living hell." Yumi Tran's voice carried a threat, her face still full of smugness, as if she were completely in the right. In my previous life, their family had treated me like that, and now they still dreamed of me giving them money. Dream on. I wished I could see them receive their retribution instantly. Without a word, I resolutely hung up and blocked Yumi Tran. That very noon, as I browsed Zio Lushu, a social media platform, I saw a post, "How to force my sister-in-law to willingly pay 150,000 for my son's medical treatment?" As soon as I read the title, my heart immediately pounded. Yumi Tran had just called demanding 150,000 today, and now I saw this post. Could it be her? I clicked to view it. Indeed, it was her. She wrote, "My sister-in-law made me give my child salt. Now the boy has a problem and needs 150,000 for surgery. Is there any way to force her to pay?" In the comments section, many people were suspicious of her. Normally, a little salt can't affect the heart. How much did you give him? Was it your sister-in-law who harmed him, or did you do it yourself? It sounds vague. Are you trying to trick your sister-in-law into being a fool? Some also offered advice. Does she work in an office? Then she cares a lot about her reputation. If not, go to her company and cause a scene, or post it online to create public pressure. If she's not married yet, force her to marry and use the dowry money for medical treatment. Yumi Tran responded to a comment, "No, I can't let her get married. I don't know if my child will have sequelae later. I have to make her raise my child for life. Your idea is great. I will expose her." My hand froze mid-scroll as I read the comment, then I let out a cold laugh. Thankfully, I had prepared in advance. I went to her personal page and found another post, pretending not to know how to care for a child so her sister-in-law would willingly become a surrogate mother. She wrote a detailed plan to feign clumsiness, causing the child to get mildly sick. Creating the image of a clueless mother, my sister-in-law will pity her nephew and volunteer to care for him. I heard that infants who eat salt will get a fever. I'll take this opportunity to have my sister-in-law raise my child for me. I'm still young, how can I be a full-time mother? She can raise him for me, and I'll just reclaim my child when he's grown. It truly is effortless parenting. Even though I knew about her scheme from my previous life, seeing these calculated words with my own eyes still made me tremble with rage. In my previous life, I genuinely loved and cared for them. After I adopted Ethan, Yumi Tran barely paid any attention to her child. Even when I tried to return Ethan when he was starting elementary school, she still found vague excuses to refuse. Out of concern for my nephew, I worked tirelessly day and night, even sacrificing my own marriage prospects. Yet in the end, I lost to Yumi Tran's manipulation. In this life, I wanted to see how the mother Ethan trusted most would kill her own child. Not wanting my mother to be dragged into this, I secretly booked her a long trip, taking her away for a month. Sure enough, the next day I was slandered online. A video showed Yumi Tran holding a frail Ethan, sobbing uncontrollably like a pear blossom in the rain. My brother stood behind her, his face filled with sorrow. After a long psychological preparation, Yumi Tran finally trembled and spoke. I want to expose my sister-in-law, Stella Truong. My child's heart is damaged because of her. She tricked me into believing that giving children salt would be good for their health. I trusted her and fed my child egg porridge with salt. As a result, he had a fever all night and now his heart is damaged. We want her to pay the hospital fees. She refused and even blocked my entire family. She is a devil. I just found it amusing. It was the first time I realized Yumi Tran's acting abilities. Not going into showbiz was a true waste of talent. She even thoughtfully posted my home address and company. In the comments section, she incited netizens to attack me. The video went viral in less than half a day. The comments were full of curses and insults. Some even threatened to send knives and dead rats to me. I hadn't even reacted yet when Yumi Tran called immediately. It feels bad to be cursed online, doesn't it? The internet is very powerful now. If you don't want to drown in criticism, obediently transfer the money. Not only that, from now on, you'll also have to cover all of Ethan's education and living expenses. I was truly astonished by this kind of person. She didn't even bother to act anymore, opening her mouth only to demand I become her workhorse. I didn't bother to say much, only coldly replied, "Oh really? I'll play until the end." When I saw the video gaining more and more traction, I knew the time had come. I waited until she thought she had won, then I would make her fall from the peak to the abyss. I went online. I uploaded the audio recording of Yumi Tran in the hospital talking about plotting against me, screenshots of my messages reminding her not to give the baby salt, and her post on Zio Lushu. These irrefutable pieces of evidence shocked those who had previously supported her. They flooded Yumi Tran's comment section, cursing her mercilessly. Some even traced her online ID, digging up her home address and real name. Yumi Tran and my brother immediately became the targets of public attack. My brother was fired from his company due to the negative influence. Enraged, he went home and beat Yumi Tran. Yumi Tran, knowing she was in the wrong, didn't dare to cause a scene. She cried and begged my brother to sell their house to save Ethan. "Husband, the doctor said it's difficult for me to get pregnant again. Ethan is our only treasure. We can buy another house, but if we lose our child, it's over." Hearing this, my brother became even angrier, unleashing a full-force kick to Yumi Tran's chest. "You knew you only had one child, so why did you feed him so much salt?" I felt that a small amount wasn't effective enough, so I gave him more so he would get sick sooner. Then Stella Truong would see my clumsiness and take him in to raise him for me. I never expected that bitch to treat us this way. After hearing Yumi Tran's explanation, my brother grew even more furious, pointing his finger at her nose and cursing her horribly. "Now we can't get any money from Stella Truong. We've spent tens of thousands, and you even made me lose my job. You truly can't do anything right. You only know how to ruin things." In the end, my brother still refused to sell their only house. He then turned and threatened Yumi Tran to go back to her parents' house to borrow money. If she couldn't get it, he would divorce her. All these events I heard from relatives. After hearing it, I felt truly satisfied. Perhaps fearing I would retaliate again, my brother and Yumi Tran no longer dared to come looking for me. The next time I heard about them was a month later. Ever since I retaliated against the online slander, Yumi Tran was pointed at by everyone whenever she went out. Yumi Tran's sister-in-law was also a sharp-tongued woman. Seeing her reputation in tatters, she strictly forbade family members from associating with her. Therefore, when Yumi Tran went back to her parents' house to borrow money, she was sent straight back. Unable to borrow money, my brother stubbornly demanded a divorce. Although he had undergone surgery, Ethan Truong's heart might still be affected in the future. This illness was like a ticking time bomb. My brother thought Yumi Tran couldn't have any more children, but he could find other women to bear him children, so he naturally didn't want to risk his life for a child like that. But no matter how much he cursed her, Yumi Tran refused to divorce. I didn't expect Yumi Tran to show up at my house a few days later. "Stella Truong, you bitch, come out." She shrieked, yelling and frantically banging on my door. Her screams woke me up. I went to the door and looked through the peephole, seeing Yumi Tran with hair messy like a bird's nest, bloodshot eyes bulging, and dried blood on her face, looking utterly terrifying. The piercing screams echoed as if wanting to tear the air apart, making me jump. I hesitated, unsure whether to speak up, when Yumi Tran, as if possessed, banged on the door like a madwoman. A mad person is even scarier than a ghost. I gritted my teeth, not daring to make a sound, and pulled out my phone to text the police. Just as the message was sent, armed police appeared right behind her, apprehending her on the spot. The knife fell to the ground. 2 police officers firmly held her arms. She could only turn towards my house, spit, and shriek. "Stella Truong, you're also reincarnated, aren't you? It's all your fault, you bitch. I only have one child." In the previous life, you willingly paid all his expenses and sent him to university. But in this life, you're so stingy you won't even give 150,000. It's all your fault my child is like this. Hearing these words, I let out a bitter laugh. Had she forgotten she had caused my death in the previous life? Now she had the gall to blame me in return. If she hadn't been so wicked, feeding her child tons of salt to force me to raise him, Ethan wouldn't have ended up like this. It was all her karma. I opened the door and looked directly into Yumi Tran's crazed eyes, enunciating each word. "Wasn't it you who harmed your own child, causing his death? Just to trick me into raising him, you desperately forced him to eat salt. Did you think about your child's health then? It's all retribution." Yumi Tran froze for a few seconds, then shook her head wildly. "It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was you. You told me not to give him salt. You wouldn't give me 150,000. It's all your fault." The police shook their heads, immediately handcuffed her, and escorted her downstairs. For attempted murder, Yumi Tran was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But not long after entering the detention center, she went insane and was transferred to a mental hospital. The wicked people from my previous life finally received their punishment. I could finally begin my life anew with peace of mind. I worked hard, using my experience from my previous life, and quickly got promoted and received raises. A few years later, I also invested in several promising companies, earning a large sum and achieving financial freedom. After that, I took my mother on trips everywhere to relax, and on one such trip, I met my true love, M.